Welcome back to Oak Grove's 2020 virtual season, and tonight's episode premieres on what would have been the opening night of Harvey. Now, Harvey, if you don't know, is a play about a man who has a giant imaginary rabbit as a friend. And imaginary rabbits take a lot of imagination to maintain. Now, imagination is key in every aspect of creating theater, but it's key in a way you might not have thought of. It's key when things go wrong. I was in this position the night before our first audience for the 39 Steps when I heard Ben Houseconnect, who just exited, let out a scream. He'd slipped and tore a leg muscle and could barely stand. We were in the ER after midnight when I looked at him and said, what if we wrote in a stunt double? We stayed up until 2 that morning figuring it out. By 10 a.m. the next day, Aaron Crosby was cast, and 3 hours before curtain, Aaron learned the complex physicality that Ben, now on crutches, could no longer do. Ben said the lines, then called stunt double, and Aaron did the stunts. Thankfully, it was a comedy. The show goes on. Now, I think we've shown this season that the show must go on, and does. But what about those adrenaline-filled moments when things go wrong on stage? When you're in the middle of a moment and suddenly everything that happened every single day in rehearsal suddenly doesn't. It's the stories we love to retell at cast parties, but you don't always get to hear them. My first Grove show was 1997's musical Into the Woods. I remember being in awe of the talented and hilarious cast and crew. Among them, producer Linda Petsky, Barbara Spillman Lawson, who played Jack's mom, and Diane Heavener, who played the witch.
As the witch, Diane wore a nose and a chin that made her look all witchy.
So the nose, which was done by Becky Price, had to be put on there, and it was really this awful witch nose. It was so big.
And they stuck out very far, and she added a hairpiece to her costume.
Now, spoiler alert, the witch wasn't always a witch, and at the end of Act 1, there was a magical transformation as Diane, shrouded in mystical fog, changed from warty witch to beautiful woman.
Now she has a big cape that she has now used to cover her beautiful dress. And what she normally would do is, with her back to the audience, she would drop the cape, the hat would go, and she would quickly move and take off the chin and the nose and then turn around and pose as the beauty in the spotlight.
And it was stunning. Every night but one. Diane tells us one night she thought she'd save a little time removing the chin earlier than normal.
She took off the chin. She went up. She thought, ha, I have extra time. So she took off the hat and she turned around and posed and did not realize that she had left on the hideous witch nose.
And everybody backstage is going, oh no.
And the best part of all is that her hairpiece had gotten caught in the sequins of the beautiful dress. And as she raised her arm, the hairpiece just sort of hung from under her armpit.
I think the audience was a little bit confused at that point.
I watched it as she scurried up the rock, turned around, and had this honking nose sticking out. I wasn't in the perspective where I saw the hair hanging, but everyone in the audience was.
So we're doing Sleuth. It's a 2-person show, and I'm on stage, and in the distance I see a lightning bolt. And I'm concentrating on that. I'm thinking about the storm that's coming. I'm thinking we're going to get rained out. And the person that's acting with me finishes his line. I'm not paying any attention to him. And so I'm completely lost. Every other line is mine. It's my line. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, and I have to say something. I skipped 3/4 of the second act. We're basically about 10 minutes away from the end. The other person can't help me. I can't help myself. And then, luckily, the heavens open up and it just pours down rain. We're canceled for the evening, and the audience never knows the difference. So it was really, really bad what I did. At this point, I've directed 3 shows, and for the last 2 shows, I have told each of those casts that they need to stay in the moment on stage and stay where they listen to the other actors and not be distracted by the things going on around them that aren't on the stage, because if they do what I did, then they'll end up lost and they might not get saved by Mother Nature.
Mother Nature and nature can both wreak havoc on stage. 1959's Visit to a Small Planet is a unique show involving extraterrestrials returning to Earth to rerun the Battle of Bull Run. Betty Collins played the ingenue and was supposed to be having a somber moment on stage, having learned some disturbing news about the aliens.
She's supposed to sit on the sofa and stare down at the ground and concentrate to call his minder, the higher power of this extraterrestrial. And I'm sitting there when I see something out of the corner of my eye, and it's a frog. And the frog starts across the stage, and it stops for a while and looks around, and it comes a little bit farther. It keeps doing this, and I realize not just am I concentrating on the frog, the entire audience is concentrating on the frog. They have no clue what the plot is because we're all concentrating on this frog. And after a while I think, oh my gosh, I don't know if they've gotten to my line. I'm supposed to jump up and interrupt, and I haven't done anything. And there's the frog. And he went the entire way across the stage. And that's a long way, and not fast. He just went across at his own pace. We had to go on with the play, but again, I don't think the audience was hearing the play. You know, guy comes on, he says, "You got to stop this war. You can't do that." Frog is still going across the stage. Everybody's watching the frog.
So it's 1995, and it's Little Shop of Horrors in a nutshell. A nerdy little guy has this plant that he realizes eats blood, and the plant gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it all takes place in a flower shop, and they start feeding it more blood and then people, and then the plant takes over the world.
So the last plant, the one that takes up the whole entire stage, has to have a very fit, muscular operator inside. Because once you're inside, you are bending over, your legs are fully apart, and then using your upper back and shoulders, you have to lift the upper part of this plant.
So the plant is extremely heavy.
So it was the next to the last night of the run of our show. And while we were trying to get the full audience back into their seats during intermission, they came and got me because they said there was a problem.
Our puppeteer had a terrible kind of like asthmatic attack. And so we had an extended intermission, and we're frantically trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Who can we get? And of course, everybody looked at Linda.
So I got in the plant, looked around and thought, how bad can this be?
And she realized right away how heavy it is and how hard it is to manipulate. And I'm out there having a scene with her, and I leaned in and I said, "Can't you open it or move it just a little bit?" And she's, inside trying to just turn the thing like slightly, and she couldn't do anything.
I thought I was lifting the plant enough, but apparently I wasn't. So poor Bob Wright had to lift the plant and go through on his own.
And then I feed Janie to the plant.
Oh, Janie, she's tiny and all. I'll be able to lift it enough for her.
We're able to kind of lift it up and then set her inside. And then finally, I think I just forced it open and climbed in, and then they slammed down on me and we all died.
When the show ended, I was dripping with sweat. I came out the back and could not even feel my legs. So when the play goes right, it definitely looked like the plant was eating them. The night I had to do it, it was definitely that they were feeding the plant all right, because they had to feed themselves to that plant. I had to become one with the plant. It didn't exactly work, but I tried.
It was 1992. We were doing a farce. It was called Bullshot Crummond. We were rained out that night, so what we do is say, okay, if the show lends itself to it, we come down here. Roxanne Kugler was my partner in this, and we were the two that were against the bad guys. The gist of it was I was to dictate a message to her. She was the secretary. She would write the message down, and then I would take the message and I would catch a carrier pigeon. The pigeon was going to come in on the end of a fishing line, but it would be suspended, so I could reach up and just grab it. Well, down here, coming over these two walls that we had, they were on wheels, like rectangles on wheels. They had been used for a couple of shows as just a backdrop. So we used them back behind me here in front of the machine shop, or the flats where they store all the things. Now, the pigeon was going to be zipped over that wall and hopefully come down in front of it. Well, of course, our hopes were dashed. It never came down in front of it. It got stuck between the panels of one of the wall and fell. So the pigeon never made an appearance. A few days before, during the production, I remembered walking through the shop and seeing this stuffed duck. It was like a toy duck, like a decoy. So all I could think to do was, I'll run around and get that duck. And I ran around and said, "Where's that stuffed duck?" And Lord love them, they brought me this duck within 5 seconds. They were a great crew. So I came back out and put it up on my shoulder and said it was a carrier pheasant. And then I held its head while I was talking and dictating and turning its head with mine. And when it was done, instead of tying the message to the foot like I would have with the pigeon and just tossed it, I said, "The carrier pheasant has a different way," and I turned it butt first and stuffed the message up and tossed it over. Well, probably got the best laugh of the night.
We thought it fitting to include a segment in our virtual season on things that go wrong on stage because, let's face it, a lot has gone wrong in 2020. And it feels trite to say it when things are so tough right now. But there is beauty in the world even if you can't see it at that moment. Which leads us to our last story. In 2011's Cactus Flower, I had a super fast costume change on stage, left, enter stage right in a completely different costume. Went great every night, except the night the zipper stuck. My dresser's tugging, it won't come down, I'm cussing. Finally, knowing my cue is coming up, I whisper, "Run with me," and we're running through the woods. I'm pretty sure my arms are stuck above my head. Finally, at some point in the woods, the zipper unsticks. Clothes are flying off, new outfits flying on. I get to my entrance in time to wipe the sweat off my forehead and knock and walk on stage. About 3.5 seconds after I enter, the amount of time it would take an audience to see there's somebody new on stage and take them in, the entire audience gasped. It was the biggest gasp I've ever heard out here, and I thought, something went wrong. I'm missing a costume piece, I'm half naked, something's hanging out, and I spent the entire scene subtly trying to check and see if everything was okay, and everything seemed okay. At the end of the show, my parents happened to be in the audience that night, and I said, "Hey, near the end of the show, you guys gasped. What was that?" And my mom said, "The biggest, most beautiful, longest shooting star I've ever seen went in the sky behind you guys." There's beauty, even if you can't see it right now. Now, this was supposed to be our last segment of the virtual season to coincide with what would have been the last show of the season. But so many wonderful folks send in videos of what the Grove means to me, there will be a second version of that airing next week. On behalf of everyone here at the Grove and everyone who made these virtual videos possible, we want to thank you for rolling with the punches this season. We miss you, we miss each other, and we miss the Grove. And we very much look forward to playing in the woods with you next summer.